You cannot look at people as numbers and expect them to get better. There's just so many different kinds of people who have different mindsets about what work means, what having your own business means versus somebody else having a business that you work for.
If you're starting your own business, there is no such thing as work-life balance. And it is wild how many people actually think that that's the reason they start their own business.
I started the clinic because I got real tired of working for systems that were beholden to the insurance world, basically.
I made way more money in corporate, but doing my business is way harder, but way more rewarding. You work with a bunch of small businesses, right? Because they're either employees of when they come in and use you as a practice, or you're in your consulting with the PTs.
We treat everybody with a pelvis for constipation, incontinence, pain with sex, any type of pelvic pain or discomfort that they're having.
If you could go back and give your younger self advice, and it doesn't have to be financial advice, any kind of advice, what would it be? Welcome to today's PlanAssist Podcast, where we interview successful entrepreneurs and business leaders with the goal of helping you make better financial decisions. Now, before I get into it, I just want to quickly overview of what is PlanAssist. And PlanAssist is not a product. It's not an investment. PlanAssist is a process to help you make better financial decisions. And the way that we do it is really around three core questions. Is your lifestyle aligned with your income? Is your income resilient and diversified? And then are you making progress on both? And those are kind of individual questions, the way that I ask them, but that also applies to those of us who are solopreneurs and or running businesses and you're looking at the balance sheet. So with that, today, I'm super excited to welcome Dr. Jenny Porter. She's the founder of Porter Pelvic Physical Therapy in South Daytona. Jenny is a doctor of physical therapy and a board-certified orthopedic clinic specialist who focuses on pelvic health for people of all genders. Her practice takes a whole body approach and helps patients address issues of all kinds when it comes to their pelvic. So she's also a teacher at doctor level courses, an advisor board at Advent University's physical therapy. So with that, is there anything you want to add to that or that I missed?
No, that's a good little rundown of it. Yeah.
That's awesome. So tell me, you and I got together with 1 Million Cups. So you did a presentation, 1 million. Did you go to Daytona Beach? Is that where you did it at?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I haven't been in a little while, unfortunately, because the clinic picked up, but I did do a presentation there. I guess it was like 2.5 years ago at this point. Yeah.
Is that when it was like in the movie theater, or I think it's like
Is it not still in the movie theater?
No, that's what I asked when you did it. Yeah.
Yes. It's cinematique or cinematic.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's a good location. I did it there too.
Oh, loved it. Yeah. I really liked that atmosphere.
And it's a good group. I mean, so it was fun. I enjoyed it and got good feedback.
Yeah, I just started to reconfigure my schedule a little bit so that I can start to go back again.
Yeah.
I've missed it since I haven't been able to go.
That's kind of me too. So you get busy. In fact, in a perfect world, that's what you want to happen, right? You go give a presentation, you got something, you get some feedback, and you get so busy that you can't go back, Mm-hmm. So anyways, so with that, so before we get too far into this, I start all these conversations with the same question. And that is, if you could go back and give your younger self advice, and it doesn't have to be financial advice, any kind of advice, what would it be?
I think I was kind of thinking about this, and it's not different from what I've been thinking for a long time, is I wouldn't have based as many of my grown-up decisions on what was safe or what seemed like what normal people do. Yes. And by that I mean, right? If I had, I didn't go back for my doctorate until I was 30. So there was a lot of time spent where I was just trying to figure out what the heck I was going to do. And it really ended up being that I had always been athletic. I had always been into group fitness, and I used to teach classes. I was a trainer, all that. But somebody along the way told me that that's not a serious career. So I just didn't think of it. It was just always a side hustle. And I think if I had just leaned into it a little more, I would have found my way a lot faster than taking a desk job that I was miserable at because it had benefits, like it paid me nothing. So that's what I would have done is I would have listened to what my brain was actually telling me versus trying to listen to what the conservative financial world was
Saying,
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Because that's real. And that's a really big challenge for almost anyone that's what I would call analytical, right? I mean, if people are analytical, they've kind of thought through how do you make decisions, et cetera, and sometimes that's an easy one to fall into. I mean, like really easy. Because I'm guilty of it as well. So when you went back and got your doctorate, how'd you tell us a little bit about that? Did you do it still working, or did you stop and do the doctorate and
A little bit of both. So at that time, I was working. I was running a fitness center at the local JCC, and oh yeah, it's kind of a weird story. So we were gonna move to Ireland for my husband's job,
oh my gosh.
and yeah, and I was looking into what I could do in Ireland. And at the time, I had a chocolate shop that I owned that I would take to
Uh-huh.
markets, and I ran this fitness center, and that was my work. And I couldn't work at all in Ireland. So if we went to Ireland, I wouldn't be able to work, and I couldn't take my chocolate company, because you have to go with like 300,000 in capital and be able to hire 10 Irish people right out of the gate. So that's when I started to look around at what I could do while we were there. And they have a good PT program at Trinity College, I believe it is in Dublin. So I started to look into it, but then we ended up not going. My husband
Yeah.
didn't take the job, but I had already put in all of this work into trying to figure out what it was that I really wanted to do, and I was like, well, why stop now? I've got all this momentum. So I worked through the prereqs, but then fortunately we were in a position where I could just back out and just get my doctorate, not have to work any part-time jobs or anything like that. Because it's really a full-time program. So we were lucky in that respect because I didn't have to take on loans or anything like that.
So the Ireland opportunity ended up really one of those wild whys in your life, right? I always
Hmm.
look back and think, oh my gosh, I did this. What made me do that? And it's kind of interesting how many times you wouldn't think of them as that rational or thought through, but then all of a sudden events happen and away you go.
Exactly. Yeah. And I never would have expected any of that. Yeah.
And one of the things that I see as a financial advisor, so my whole job's basically been financial advisor, right? So I've helped rich people stay rich is my job, right? And one of the things that I notice when I watch companies or do research on companies is the same thing happens to them. So I'll go and invest in those companies based on a thesis, right? Okay, here's what's going to happen. You listen to their financial calls, whatever, and now they do them like they really know what they're doing, right? So they have 20-page PowerPoints and a bunch of numbers, right? But then when you actually watch that company unfold, it's no different than us as individuals. When it starts unfolding, those companies almost never, if you go back and look at their original kind of what they were doing and then fast forward 5 years, and that's really true if they're successful,
Hmm.
right?
You've
I
got to
mean,
be able to pivot. Yeah.
exactly. Like if
Hmm.
they're really successful companies, it's almost impossible to predict kind of where they'll actually make their money, what their niche will end up being.
Hmm.
I mean,
And that's, I mean, every business owner that I talk to, it's very rare that things don't change in the way that they structure the way that they do things, especially if there's going to be growth. So you do get, solopreneurs who work in a position where it's the one thing, it's not going to change. It's not, they're not looking to bring on other people or expand in any way. Those are the people who it's kind of going to look similar to when they started. But if there's a growth pattern there, if you're not just looking to fill a schedule and just exist on that schedule, then that's where I feel like the pivoting comes into play. And I have lots of friends who are entrepreneurs, and I've seen all of the pivots in taking on leases and then having to sublet, and that's a component of their business now, and bringing on extra clinicians, extra admin, different things like that that weren't originally part of the plan, but they saw the opportunity and they pivoted and they jumped on the chance to grow. That's where I see it the most.
exactly. And we talked about the number. There's so many solopreneurs, which before we started recording, the Small Business Administration says there's about 35 million small businesses registered with them. And out of that, 27 million of those are solopreneurs, right? I mean, now that doesn't mean necessarily that they're not working with other people or have 1099s, but it's a big group of people that, are always out there. And then the one point I'd make on that the ones that don't pivot, they're more like, I wouldn't even call them solopreneurs. What they've done is gotten some kind of structure that gives them a job. It's nothing more than a job, right? It's not really a
Mhm.
business, right? I mean, I can make a bunch of money doing something
Mhm.
and I just keep it that way. And that's kind of it. And then when they quit, they just shut their business down and away they go.
That's actually, yeah, I never really thought about that, but they're just giving themselves a job.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, yeah.
And they're totally happy with it. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, again,
Mm,
it's not a wrong or right. It's just kind of what people find what works.
absolutely. And I've
Yeah.
had, I do a lot of mentoring with the PT students also who are in the doctorate program I teach at. And just as many of them want to start their own practice and do their own thing as never want to do that. And they always want to work for someone else and not take on the risk and the liability of having their own practice. So there's just so many different kinds of people who have different mindsets about what work means, what having your own business means versus somebody else having a business that you work for.
What do you think
Um,
the biggest misconception for the person who says, I want to start my business? So when you started your business, what what is, and I'm not even asking for you because you probably didn't have this misconception, but when you're talking to those PT students, what do you think the biggest part they don't quite understand about starting a business?
I think the biggest part is kind of twofold. So the first fold is if you don't have a support system in place, if you don't have a spouse that makes income and has insurance, or parents who still have you on their insurance, the odds of you being able to build up a clinic on your own and live and survive and pay your own rent or mortgage and all of the other things, it's less likely. It's not impossible. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but it's
Right.
less likely. And people, I think, take that for granted when they do have that support system and they're able to jump into it without considering like, okay, so I literally have to hustle so that I meet XYZ, versus building it because you want to build it a certain way and you could take your time. So that's the first misconception. And then the second one is that the internet will tell you you'll be full in a month. Like you're going to be full, just follow this specific marketing plan and the doors are going to be busting, people waiting to get in to see you, but only if you do it right and only if you follow this plan. So that's the second misconception. It's like, it takes time. This is not, very rarely our business is a true overnight success. Overnight, I'm finding usually means more like 2 to 3 years. That's an overnight success when you think about our line of work anyway, because you do some investing on the beginning. Like, yeah, I just feel like people think it's a much faster build than it is.
I I had all that happen to me when I started Corewell. So I went from kind of corporate America to starting my own small RIA practice. And it was so interesting because the hustle of getting enough assets was so much stress. I can't even believe it. It was a little different than you described in an income piece. I didn't have the hustle of income, but in order to have my a RIA, the firms that would accept us, you had to have a certain amount of clients' assets, right? And so my first couple years were there. And during that conversation, I'll never forget, I sat down with a friend because again when you're trying to do that you always go to friends and family early, right? Because you're like, I just need money or need assets, and so I don't care what we kind of make, but we got to get this. And one of my clients, he's still a client today, so it was like real early on. He told me 10 years, and you know what, he was pretty close. Interesting enough, it's not that I didn't start making money in 2 or 3 years,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't really have what I would call functioning business for 10 years. And when he told me that, I actually got into a semi debate with him. I'm like, really? It's no, I heard it's 5. He goes, it's not, Tim. He goes, you better settle in and plan because it's 10. And he was,
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when my 10-year hit and I look back and I said, he was just about dead on.
Yeah, but it's surprising because
It's
you
very
even
surprising.
even in the midst of it, like even at 5 years, you might have been like, see, I'm pretty good right now. But then at that 10-year mark, it's like, oh
Yeah,
no,
you're
this is
out of business, right? That's right.
yes,
So it
yeah.
wasn't like the 5 year was a disaster because you kind of got to make
No.
each of the stones, right? The part that
Mm,
I think people miss the most in when I'm talking to people like at the chamber and they're starting a business is They mix up job versus they're starting a business. And for some reason, if they use the word work-life balance, even a little bit, Jenny, I'm like, you're done. Okay. I literally will look at them and say, you should not do this because if you're starting your own business, there is no such thing as work-life balance. And it is wild how many people actually think that that's the reason they start their own business.
Hmm. I hope I 100% agree with that. It because even when you're not like working in the business, your brain is in the business. Like
No, correct.
yeah, you can compartmentalize things sometimes, and you can set some boundaries for yourself. But like we were talking about at the beginning, you got to pivot. Like if
No,
something's
that's right. I
happening,
mean, you
like
wake up at night,
yeah,
you go out and do emails. I mean, it's like it is a constant. To your to this day. I mean,
yeah,
I still work a lot, right? And now again, I don't want to sound like it's uphill in the snow barefoot, right? I still enjoy
yeah.
my life. I got to work a lifestyle thing, but during some periods of time, I don't control my time, right? I mean, like
Mhm.
depending on what's happening and I mean, it's all in when you got to be all in.
Yeah, absolutely. And
So,
working in the business and on the business in my regard, because like I treat patients a lot. And I also have to do all of the business stuff. And I also have to be responding to new patients who are coming in. And thankfully, I have like a really good support team now who
behind you, yeah.
helps with a lot of that. But even still, they're not working 24/7, you know? So I have to make a decision. Am I going to get back to this
Oh my
person
gosh.
on a Saturday, or am I going to just wait until it's work week? Like those are it's a constant decision of like, do I really want to wait until Monday, or do I just want to jump on this patient, or like what?
Yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
real. It's so interesting, and but I can't over describe that the excitement and the exhilarity of doing it. Like again, I've only had my own practice for 11, 12 years. I made way more money in corporate, but doing my business is way harder, but way more rewarding. It's really interesting how it's like different, but it's way more rewarding.
Yeah, I think so too. I've worked in all aspects of things. I've never worked in finance. That's the one thing that I have never done, but I've worked in corporate, I've worked in publishing, I've worked, lots of various things. And nothing is the same. Nothing is the same as running your own
Right, because we
thing.
have to
And
know,
yeah.
you have to be an expert in one thing, right? So here's where it gets challenging. In corporate, you just got to be good at something to keep your job. As a small business owner, especially as a solopreneur, you got to be like expert. I mean, like number one, but then
Mhm.
you got to be good at a whole bunch of stuff, right? I mean, running the marketing, running the business, etc. I think that's what makes it fun and exciting, but also challenging.
Super. Yeah. And I think you hit a good point. You have to be really good at everything, but you also you have to be very consistent with things too. Like in the corporate world, there's so much division, I feel like, in what job responsibilities are. So it's
That's
like,
right.
oh, I want to do this thing. I'll push it over to that person who
Yeah,
does that thing
that's
and
right.
let them run with it. Nobody running with it unless I run with it. Like
Yeah, no, that's right.
that's a good point.
And you don't have the friction that you have in corporate, which is good and bad,
Hmm.
right? So you kind of go through a process. So let's shift gears and talk about your business. Tell us a little bit about you and kind of what some of your opportunities and challenges, and then we'll just kind of talk in general, bigger terms of what people. Again, I swear I don't think it matters what kind of business you're in. I think they're all really really similar in nature as far as they go. Some have a little more regulations, but even that is changing because like your world and my world are the same. There's so many regulations. We can't do certain things because regs, right? I mean, part of our business model is built around regs.
Hmm. Yes, and that's been one of the harder things for me is you can look into stuff as much as you want to about rules and regulations and practice acts and all of that, but if you're not interpreting it the right way, you're not going to find out for a long, long time that you
Yeah,
were
that's
wrong, and something happens, and it's like, oh no. So that's been one of my biggest challenges in the clinic. But this is the attitude that I bring to the table as far as the clinic goes. I started the clinic because I got real tired of working for systems that were beholden to the insurance world, basically. If the insurance wasn't paying them, they had to change what their business model was. So it stopped becoming about patients and it started becoming more about how much money can we make per patient so that we can stay open in some cases because everything, like the reimbursements change, et cetera. And I also got tired of towing the line of what was appropriate or not. So not to say I'm a super inappropriate person, but my goal is
Right.
to treat everybody with a pelvis. And so I noticed at one clinic that I was working at, it was like a religious based system. Uh, we weren't really seeing any like LGBTQ transgender population. I was like, I know they're here. There's like a huge center down the street. Why are we not treating these patients? They need pelvic care. And so I pitched it to my boss at the time, and I was like, "Hey, here's why. This is all the research showing that they don't utilize medical care because they're scared to. What can we do to get more on our plate? You know?" So she was like, "Okay, we'll come up with like an example of marketing material, and we'll see what we can do." So they send it to marketing, and marketing the marketing team who we've never met before.
Right.
The manager over there just said, "Nope, we're not going to do it." Like, we're not
Yeah.
going to create marketing stuff for it. We're not going to reach out to specific physicians for it. And to their credit, the people that worked under that marketing manager were like, "Excuse me?" Like, "No, we absolutely are going to do this." So they pushed back, and I did get a little bit of marketing material. It wasn't enough, and then I ended up leaving that not that long after to do my residency. But I just got so sick of the pushback on stuff that I just think is ridiculous. Like, if you
Right.
see a need and you know you can meet it, there shouldn't be all of this pushback because somebody has some like weird ideology about something. People are people. Like, I just want to treat people. I want them to feel better in their pelvis, you know? So I got sick of that. So I wanted to open my own practice and just
That's
kind of do
awesome.
whatever I want. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
Yeah.
That's a great story. And I was very fortunate. Like one of the great was when I left kind of the trading world, I was in Chicago on the trading floor, but when I left there, I ended up, grace of God, at Schwab. Okay. Now Schwab was just happened to be starting. So Chuck was still really involved in running the company. There was 40 branch offices. And that 10 years at Schwab, it's not like it is today. So like I get a kick out of people when I say I worked at Schwab and they're like, well, oh, it's like this. And I said, no, I went there during now it's a real company. Back when I started, it was more like a growth company, right? It was like
Yeah.
this massive. And over the years from that one experience, Chuck was so hyper focused on the client. He did not care about anything other than the client, right? It was let's build this for the clients. And if you ever got off track on that, it just wasn't the company for you. And I'm telling you, Jenny, I worked for Ameriprise, I worked for H&R Block, I worked for those are my two primary companies after leaving Schwab, but they focused not on the client. They focused because they were corporate, they focused on the person delivering the service to the client, right? So like at Block, it was more the tax pros. At Ameriprise, it was more financial advisors, right? And again, I'm
Mhm.
not. This isn't a dig. It's just. I think it's the way the business model's designed.
Yeah. And it's a philosophy.
Th-
And
th-
we actually, that's who we use for all of our banking is Schwab, my husband
Right,
and I, because I think they still do. I'm sure it's different from when you worked there, but it's a really good example of what does the customer actually need? Do they
correct.
need convenient ATMs, or do they need to just be able to use whatever ATM they want to? And we don't have to have all of these branches all over the place. It's like, yes,
No,
that one.
correct. But it was my most eye-opening experience. To your point, it was like because I'd worked at three companies, and to this day, I mean, it's just it was shocking. I mean, Chuck's still, I think, chairman of the board, but he's much older, right? But they still have a
Oh.
very client-focused firm, right? And then when I
Mhm.
started Corewell Consultants, that's really what I did what you did. You and I are totally aligned. I was like, I just care. I'm not gonna. I really want to really hyper focus on what the client experience is. And
Yeah. And kind of take the BS out of it for them. So we do accept a couple insurances now, but it's always within certain parameters that make us allowed to, we're still allowed to practice the way that we want to practice because it's still a business at the end of the day. But
yeah, you still got to make
um,
money, right? I mean, you
yeah,
can't. I mean, you got to get by. So let's shift the kind of the last conversation. Just give me kind of your quick summary of you work with a bunch of small businesses, right? Because they're either employees of when they come in and use you as a practice, or you're in your consulting with the PTs. What do you think the biggest opportunity and the biggest challenges are for that group?
for the
I think either one. I don't think you got to kind of you can kind of take it wherever you want with if you were starting a small business, if you were starting your business today, what do you think the challenge and opportunities are? Kind of summarize that, you know?
it's always going to fall back to insurance. I think the biggest challenge is the biggest challenge is actually creating an atmosphere in a clinic that looks like what you want it to look like instead of what you're very comfortable with, which is a very full but also very insurance based clinic where everything is dictated by what someone else is willing to pay you versus what the patient themselves is willing to pay you. So that's very, it's like hyper specific to our industry, but that is the biggest challenge is it's really easy. I'm sure you had a little taste of this when you were starting yours. It's really easy to be like, well, if I just fall back into the same patterns as the old place I used to work, like I bet it will be successful. And it's like, yes, but there's
Yeah.
no change with that. You're not
Yes.
changing anything. So holding on to the reason that you broke off on your own and not just putting your tail between your legs and falling back into a similar pattern, that is absolutely the hardest thing to overcome if you're starting any business, but in, specifically in the physical therapy world.
Yeah, no, 100%. Because you go into it with this ideology of I'm going to do this and this and this and how's it going to do, and then all of a sudden reality kicks in about 8, 9 months a year in. Oh, I better make some money and get some clients on the board, and you start kind of going down some path. Are insurance companies getting better? Are there any better than others, or is it still just because clients feel that, right? I mean, what you described, that's a serious rub point for clients as well.
Yeah, I don't know all the time because we don't take insurance traditionally. We
Okay.
tend to only we take subcontracts that are like we give them a sheet of everybody we treated and then they cut us a check for it. And it's not like we submit all these codes and then they might reimburse us part of it. Like we don't have that. From my understanding, no, it's not better.
Still
If
the
anything,
same.
it's worse. Yeah, and a lot of patients they don't like their insurance. They just feel like they're tied to it, and they have to be paying these huge premiums, and then they have these copays on top of it. So no, it's like not easy for anybody right now. So we tend to focus more on if we are going to take a subcontract, we want it to be local. So Florida Healthcare is one that we took a subcontract on because we know it's all local people. And again, we kind of defined it in our own terms a little bit because it's a subcontract through a different facility. And then we're just starting another one where we're going to be helping people who are not necessarily unhoused, but severely underserved in the medical world. So that's going to be another one that we're going to take on. It's not our full caseload. It's not like, it's not like we're opening a pro bono clinic or anything like that. Like there will be reimbursement for it, but we like to be very specific in who we open the doors for. And then everyone else is self-pay and they pay a flat rate per session. They come in, we do what we need to do. They can communicate it with us between sessions about questions that they have. They're not getting lost in a huge system of people. But it would have been really easy to just start to take insurance in the traditional way and have all the
Yeah,
headaches
exactly.
that come along with
Oh
it.
my
Yeah.
gosh, yes. So let's finish the last part of this on my favorite subject of all is and we'll just build on that was the challenge, just build on the opportunity and kind of what you just said is AI. And I'm surprised that AI is taking as long as it is, but I still hold out hope that AI will help with some of that, right? Some of that insurance. I think this like Peter Thiel talks about 0 to 1. We wrote a book a long time ago on taking companies from something totally different to something what they aren't. And I think AI will at some point reinvent insurance, but it's not going very fast, is it?
No. And what I see, like everybody uses AI in some different capacity. What I see AI is lacking is, first of all, nuance, because there's no situation that's 100% the same. So the nuance that is lacking in AI is going to, in my prediction, it's going to wind up with lumping people by numbers and norms more so than it does now. The other side of it is AI is not human. That's the aspect about medical care specifically is you cannot look at people as numbers and expect them to get better. You have
Right.
to, there's a human element to it that I think is, I feel like it gets missed a lot. There's a lot of psychology that goes into things. There's a lot of backgrounds and sub histories that people have that are going to impact things in a way that AI is not going to be able to predict because
And you
they're
can't
not
share that stuff on there either. And you don't want to be sharing that
right.
to make it give you the right answer. You got to give it too much information. So
Hmm.
that's true in financial services as well, right? I mean, like if you really were willing to upload all your financial stuff, it might come at least in the ballpark of what you do. But if you're only giving it parts, it's not
I
going to be
can't,
able
yeah,
to, it can't go there.
can't nail it down. But I think there's room for it to improve systems, like, because there's definitely inefficiencies and processes that exist that could be improved upon for sure. So I think from that standpoint, it could help. But I'm nervous that it's going to remove even more of the nuance and human aspect that comes with healthcare.
What I see, and you and I have we're different industries, but similar, right? Because regulations, clients, it's pretty complicated, all that kind of stuff. And what I see and what I'm excited about with AI, it's not so much the client level. It's not so much the conversation of a client can go in and say you should have your investments like this or financial planning and all that because I had the same thing. There's a bunch of nuances. There's a bunch of drama in their lives, right? I mean, depending on, second marriage, 10 kids, 5 kids, whatever, I mean, there's just all kinds of crazy stuff that goes on in people's lives that in order to give them good financial advice, you got to add all that stuff up, right? So that part, I agree 100% with you on kind of that part of the business. What I do see is the running my small business as a solopreneur. It is so much fun for the productivity gains that I see happening on has almost nothing to do with the financial
Mhm.
advice that I give, right? It has to do with organization, how do you run the business? How do you create stuff that's not technically a client's information? I've just
Y-
found that emails. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but an email used to take me 10 minutes. Now it still takes me three because I have to put my information in and, read it. But it's definitely taken time off.
Yeah, and I agree with you. That's what I was saying about the inefficiencies in the processes, that there could be some clarity and better systems developed with that. I'm actually surprised a lot that when I do get an email and I look down and they're like, "Would you like us to reply with?" You write it out. I'm like, yeah, that's pretty close to what I was gonna
Exactly.
say.
No, seriously, it's
Yeah,
unbelievable.
it's
And
it's really
and
surprising.
and and then if I even say yes, I can go in and change it around. But I'll give you a real fascinating. So I was using AI for my emails with my clients. And I have really small investment practice, so I don't really go and grow my business. But one of my clients calls me and says, I asked her if she saw an email that I sent her, right? Because I used AI and I used Zapper. So I have an admin that was helping me. And so she was going through and I said, this is a really important email. We need to send it out to all the clients. And I said, okay. So we used AI to set it up and it looked real personal. It was, like, to your name and da da da. And and we really worked hard at it. So it wasn't like just throwing it in. I mean, the wording and all that stuff was me and all that. And I sent it to her. And about, I don't know, 3 days later, I talked to her. I said, did you read that email I sent you? And she goes, no. I said, why not? She goes, it was spam. I said, what? I said, it was not. I said, I did it myself. And I said, what made you think it was spam? And she goes, Tim, she goes, it started with dear so and so. You always start with hi, da 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 da. So the minute I saw how that email started, I read zero. I started
Yep.
laughing. I'm like, oh my gosh. I told Heather, I said, we got to get way more detailed in kind of, but that was like a really kind of eye-opening experience for me because they were actually personal emails,
Yeah.
but
It's the nuance. It's the
I
nuance.
missed the nuance to your point, right?
Yeah.
Like no one reads my email. I don't start any emails with "I hope your day is good," right? That's just
Right.
if I that's an AI thing,
Yeah.
right? I just
Yeah. And people, it's people recognize it, without even realizing it. People will be like, that's AI. I don't know how I know that, but I know that that wasn't written by a human 100%. Um,
exactly.
yeah. Yeah.
It's so fascinating. So,
It really is.
okay. Well, so to finish up, just give us how people get in contact with you and just quickly kind of who are your clients. So let's just kind of finish up with, what is your profile of the perfect client if someone were to reach out to you and then how do they get in contact with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So we treat everybody with a pelvis for constipation, incontinence, pain with sex, any type of pelvic pain or discomfort that they're having. There's not really an ideal clientele
Right.
because everybody has a pelvis, right? The people I really enjoy working with are people who have pain with sex and generalized pelvic pain.
Uh-huh.
That's the population that I like to see the most. And usually that's tends to be a little bit younger, but it's not, I don't like treating them the most because they're younger. It's more just like the population that I've found, I don't know, the most success with. I just have a lot of empathy for that population. Um, to get in touch with us, we've got a website, porterpelvic.com. You can go there. We also have a virtual course that was in part developed by AI with corporate courseware
That's
on incontinence.
fantastic.
So if people don't want to come in for a visit, we do have like that online self-paced course from their phone or their computer that they can take if they're leaking. But that's all on porterpelvic.com. And then we do have Instagram, Porter Pelvic PT is our Instagram handle. And they can call or text us 386-227-6077. And then we can get them started based off of what their issue is and what we need to do for them.
That's perfect. Thank you so much. That's fantastic. And thanks. Then one last question I just wanted, are you seeing a higher group of people come in because of the shot? Because constipation is a common side effect of that, the weight loss shots. Are you seeing an increase in patients from that or not?
Yes and no. So I do have a lot of patients who we've made that connection, not a lot, but I've had more patients that we've made that connection between the medication because there's a lot of medications that can cause constipation. So that is a newer medication that people have that we're making that connection with, but probably not as much as you would think.
Okay.
It's like it's common. There's different ways they can play with dosages with their
Their
primary
physicians.
care
Yeah,
to help,
exactly.
timing, different things like
And it's
that.
a
So like
very
some,
known side effect. So
mhm.
they wouldn't come for specialists like yourself for
Not
something.
necessarily either because we know what it is. Like,
Right.
the option, it's nothing that I'm going to be like, I can make some recommendations, but if you're going to keep taking the medication, your body's chemically predisposed to have that constipation at this point. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, cool. All right.
Yeah,
Well, I
that's a
appreciate
good
you
question,
coming
Tim.
on.
I did not expect that to be the last
Well,
question.
the only reason I thought of it's because I hear a lot of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I actually hear people that's the one reason that they don't. And I'm not a medical person, but the shot's really popular, right? And so people kind of
Hmm.
talk about, if someone just starts losing weight out of nowhere, it's
Yeah.
likely the shot, right?
Yes. Yes.
Anyways,
Absolutely.
thanks again for coming on. I appreciate you.